Okay, friends, happy full moon in Sagittarius. So this is our chart for the full moon, and it's a pretty interesting chart. A couple of us were chatting um, about the mood that we're in during this full moon time. And yeah, there's a overall feeling of like maybe some anxiety, maybe some like ADHD kind of feeling, maybe some like manic kind of feeling. And we're going to talk about why we're feeling all of that. So first things first, Sagittarius, we have the full moon in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is the archetype of the archer. It's the archetype of Sagittarius is really on a quest to find truth, but this quest to find truth happens through exploring everything, exploring all the options. And so this full moon chart is we have the sun in Gemini, we have the full moon in Sag. And so we're feeling very much that Sag Gemini axis, which is very much about information, but it's also about, like I would say Gemini is more about data and information, and Sag is more about wisdom. No, I'm recording. It said recording in progress, at least for me. Is it not recording? Yeah, it's recording. It's recording. Okay. So yeah, Gemini, Sag, we got lots of information. We got this quest for wisdom. Basically, the reason why we're feeling a lot of like kind of chaotic energy in this chart is one, these two signs are both mutable. It's mutable fire and air. So we have a lot of like this kind of energy. It's a full moon, so it's amplifying that kind of energy. And then the full moon is also squaring the nodes. So we have the nodes, north node at 23 degrees Pisces, the south node is at 23 degrees of Gemini, and the full moon is at 20 degrees here of Sag. So it's almost exactly squaring the nodes. That's already, kind of intense. It's kind of a lot because the nodes, as we know, the north node is kind of like our destiny. It's our north node. It's our north star. It's like, this is where we're moving towards. This is the energy that we're seeking to embody and become in its highest expression. When we have anything square the nodes, it presents a challenge in that journey towards the north node. It presents like, here's a hiccup. Here's like an amplification of why it's difficult to access the north node, and also an amplification of the south node stuff that we're leaving behind. And the south node stuff that we're leaving behind is Virgo. But Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And so we have this double sort of Mercury energy. We have the south node in Mercury ruled Virgo. We have the sun in Mercury ruled Gemini. And there's just a lot of strong thoughts and opinions happening right now. Our mind is very strong, and any place where, some of the South Node karma with the South Node being in Virgo is around clearing our mental karma. And what I mean when I say that is like the ways in which our mind does not serve us. So, I believe it's the Alan Watts quote where he says, our karma is our mind. Our mind is what stands in the way of the clear perception of God. It's like our mind can really be a very busy and distracted and like kind of a chaotic place, especially in the Western world. We're very much conditioned to be a very mental kind of energy all the time. And our mind can be filled with a lot of perhaps like negative thoughts. There can be a lot of self-doubt, self-criticism happening in the mind. There can just be a lot of overthinking patterns. Wherever that shows up for you, whatever your sort of mind karma is, it's basically being really amplified by this full moon, and not so much in a helpful way. I mean, it is helpful because it's showing us where we have this karma to kind of clear. But it's not necessarily easy. Like a square aspect is always going to be a challenge aspect. So essentially what could be happening with this full moon is it can be kind of amplifying where we get in mental loops and where we get, I don't know about you guys, but I've been very much like in that Virgo energy of like making so many lists and like really like getting so detailed about things. That's very much Virgo. Pisces is very much like trusting the divine flow. When we get too much in Virgo energy, when we get too detailed, when we get too focused on the fine print, we tend to lose access to that ability to see the big picture and to trust the divine flow. And so our mind can be like, our mind is the one that tells us like, well, I have to get all these things done by this day, or I have to, like, I have to, there's no other way. And when we're in the trust of Pisces, it's more like, I trust that a way will be made for me. And I trust that I don't need to get really anxious. Like anxiety can be definitely a shadow of Virgo. Pisces is very chill. Pisces is like, we're going with the flow. We're trusting. If things get wonky, we're being directed into a new flow. And so essentially the most like the biggest aspect this moon is making is that square to the nodes. And that is definitely can be amplifying our South Node Virgo lessons where we are grasping for control through that anxiety, through that overthinking, through that mental chatter that can get really loud. And with Pisces, the invitation is always to surrender, to trust, to understand that there's an even higher plan, even if things are going a bit wonky in the day-to-day, which this week might feel like that a lot. So it feels very charged. This full moon feels very charged. It feels like there's a lot of electric energy. It just feels like there's a lot of mental energy. And it feels, a bit like that ADHD brain, that anxious brain, that kind of overthinking energy. We can kind of have a supercharged version of that. The helpful thing that's happening though is that the moon is making a trine to Mars. So what I realized this morning is like anxiety happens for me when I'm not taking action. Like I get anxious about something that I know I should be doing that I'm not actually doing. And the remedy for that is often just action, which is Mars. And in this chart, we can very much see that like Mars is making this beneficial aspect to the full moon. It's like basically the message of this is don't overthink it, just get to work, just get started, just start doing the thing and trust with the North Node in Pisces that it's all coming together, that it's all going to work out. Simultaneously, we obviously still have this conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. And I forget if I talked about this in the last full moon call, but it's definitely worth reiterating, which is that Saturn conjunct Neptune is a very specific transit. Neptune is this very ethereal energy. It's very much like our connection to our dreams and everything that's possible. It's very much like anything's possible energy. Whereas Saturn is very much like, yeah, but you have to do the hard work actually to get there. Like it's not just possible through magic. It's like you have to take the steps, you have to implement the things, you have to work through the 3D. It's not just going to kind of fall into your lap. And so the challenge of this aspect, this conjunction here, is that Saturn can be like a dream crushing energy for Neptune. It can be like your dreams aren't possible, be realistic, like that kind of a vibe. But if we work with this in a beneficial way, what we want to really do is stay connected to the higher vision, which remember that Neptune is the ruler of our North Node right now. So our higher vision is very, 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 very important for all of this year. We want to stay connected to that Neptunian, anything's possible kind of energy. But since Neptune's hanging out with Saturn, what we also need to remember is that we want to do this with, it's like Saturn wants us to actually achieve the dream. He doesn't want it to stay a dream. In the realm of Neptune, it's almost like it doesn't even matter because nothing's real anyway. With Saturn, Saturn is very much restricted by the 3D stuff. Like Saturn is very much about taking responsibility. It's about boundaries. It's about structures and foundations and logistics and institutions. It's like, get your shit in gear and actually make this dream happen. This is an ongoing transit. It's basically going to be happening for the rest of this year and into next year. So much of the time that we have the North Node in Pisces, the North Node ruler is going to be Neptune and is going to be hanging out with Saturn. So I actually kind of love this because it's like we're being invited into this big up level with the North Node in Pisces. We're being invited into this big sort of like dream. But in order to realize it, in order for it to actually become something physical and tangible and real, we need to also implement the structure, the foundations, the discipline. And, you know, I really feel with this combination, it's like discipline becomes devotion because the dream is so real and authentic and true that like, it's like, yeah, okay, we could, you know, be lazy and just whatever, not follow through on our dreams. But that is almost like boring. Why would we do that? You know, we have this beautiful combination of energies if we work with it in the right way. So we just want to be a little bit mindful of that, like dream crusher-y energy that can show up with this transit. What else do I want to say about this chart? Oh yeah, I can't ignore this. So the ruler of the moon is, of course, Jupiter. Ruler of Sag is Jupiter. And Jupiter is not having a very fun time right now because Jupiter is squaring Saturn once again. But this is a different square. We had Jupiter square Saturn earlier this year, but that was happening in Pisces and Gemini, which is mutable energy, which I would argue is a little easier of a square to deal with because they're both mutable, meaning they're both adaptable. And we have a square, we have a fight between two planets. So two adaptable people having a fight, it's like, okay, there can be some compromise on both sides. However, the game has totally changed because now Saturn and Jupiter are in square, and they're in square in Aries and in Cancer. Completely different energy. Aries is very hard-headed and very like, I'm going to get what I want out of this fight. And Cancer is going to be a little crybaby about it and get its feelings hurt, basically. And so, yeah, it's not an easy transit because Jupiter is our great benefic planet. It's kind of like the planet that brings blessings. And with Jupiter entering Cancer, that's a big sort of thing. I'm going to sneeze. Okay. Hopefully it's okay. We're good. So Jupiter changes signs once a year. So it's kind of a big deal that Jupiter's just entered Cancer. And anyone, you want to look to see where Cancer is in your chart, what house is occupied by Cancer. That house is going to receive blessings for the next year. If you've got strong Cancer placements, those are going to receive blessings for the next year. However, it's a bit of a rocky start for Jupiter entering Cancer because it's immediately squared by Saturn. And Saturn is kind of super malefic in this case. It's kind of like, yeah, a bit soul crushing for Jupiter, especially in a square. This makes it extra important for us to not lose sight of our dreams, right? This makes it extra important to not lose sight of the things that are good in life. Jupiter in Cancer wants to feel good, wants to feel emotionally safe, and wants to amplify the things in our life that create that sense of nourishment and deep emotional safety. Saturn in Aries is just kind of like on a mission to get done what it needs to get done. And so we want to make sure that that little argument that's happening there is not causing us to override our self-care, because Jupiter in Cancer is also going to amplify our emotional needs. Cancer rules our emotional needs and Jupiter amplifies. And so our self-care needs are actually getting bigger. And Whereas Saturn in Aries is kind of like, we're on a mission, we're building this thing, we're doing this thing, we're trying to achieve this dream. We got all of these things to do. I don't really care if you didn't get enough sleep. That's how Saturn feels. Jupiter in Cancer is not buying that. And so they're having a little bit of a struggle there. We want to make sure that we're just making sure that we take good care of ourselves right now. And Mercury is also kind of thrown into the mix. Mercury is right there, right next to Jupiter. So there's going to be, honestly, this week, there's some funny things that are going on in the world. And I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. And this is exactly what I see. This Saturn Jupiter square is like, it's a bit of a petty fight energy. It's a petty fight energy, and like someone's feelings are getting hurt, and it's loud because Jupiter is amplifying Mercury, which is like our voice. So it's loud, it's public, and it's very there's like primal raw emotion. Like it's almost childlike emotion. So this can show up in our personal lives as well. We just want to be treading carefully throughout this week. There's going to be potentially that can be stirred up on a personal level as well, depending on how this is transiting your chart. And so you're going to want to look out for getting into petty fights. You're going to want to look out for big opinions and getting overly emotional about things. We want to just make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and regulating ourselves before we get into these kinds of situations. And because the full moon is, Jupiter is the ruler of this full moon, because the full moon is in Sag, that is sort of just, this full moon is just sort of amplifying that energy as well. So a bit of a challenging chart. I am not going to lie. Let me see if I can find a silver lining for you. I would say, yeah, tough to find a silver lining, honestly. But what I would say is the silver lining is the trine to Mars. The trine to Mars is good because this is a fire trine. This is a get shit done energy. So what we can do with that kind of anxious ADHD energy is just like get some stuff done. Don't get caught up in over like stressing about what needs to get done, and also don't get caught up in like a poor me type of an energy. Just take action. The action is going to soothe some of the anxiety that's being stirred up by this full moon. The action is going to soothe some of the this is like a loud conversation, but it's not really achieving anything. So we want to stay focused on just like, what are we achieving? Where are we going with all of this energy? And what we want to stay connected to is the North Node in Pisces, keeping in mind that this full moon is going to amplify both the North Node and the South Node. And so those South Node shadows are going to come up, the overthinking, the anxious, the negative thought loops, like overly critical of others, overly critical of self. These are all shadows of Virgo. Just getting really nitpicky. Like I've noticed my mind is just like more nitpicky on like the negative stuff. We want to just interrupt those mental loops and working with this full moon to just, do something, move your body, move the energy somehow. And yeah, just try to steer clear of any drama with this is like a little bit of a drama situation over here. We want to be tender. We want to be tender with ourselves. We want to be tender with others. We want to understand that like these are cardinal signs, and Aries is the baby of the zodiac, and Cancer is this like it's kind of like we're first learning how to feel our feelings. So these two butting heads it's a challenging one, and it's very much like our inner children are fighting. And so we want to be really just gentle with ourselves, even if they're the energy might seem to be moving really quickly this week. There might be a lot on the go, a lot on the table. But we can get it all done. We have that beautiful trend from Mars, so we have the energy to do it. And the more we just do it and don't overthink it, I think the more helpful it's going to be. And then in terms of the more emotional stuff, just be tending to yourself, and others, and be gentle with others. Understand that people are probably going to be having like emotional reactions to things. You know, there's going to be this little bit of a situation happening throughout the week. So we just want to be aware of that. And we want to also be aware of Saturn not becoming a dream crusher to Neptune. We want to stay connected to the dream. We want to allow Saturn to build the dream, but Saturn can be a bit like of a workaholic. This is where I see Saturn getting into this fight with Jupiter and Cancer. Like Jupiter in Cancer wants to like amplify self-care. Jupiter in Cancer wants to like lay in bed all day and like eat snacks and like make sure we feel really, really safe. And, you know, I mean, Saturn in Aries is like, no, we got to get shit done. So see if you can bring some balance to those two. And one of the ways that I would work with Saturn in a more beneficial way to build this dream of Neptune is like, remember that this is a legacy that you're leaving. It's a long-term vision. If you don't have a long-term vision yet, work towards like do your spiritual practice to allow that to come through, because it's not going to come through overthinking it. That's the South Node. It's going to come through surrendering and being in your devotion to your practice. Discipline around your spiritual practice is important right now, but Saturn can get a little workaholic-y. We can work with that by just reminding Saturn like, hey, this is like a lifetime vision that I'm building and it doesn't have to get done this week. So we can still take care of Jupiter, little baby Jupiter over here that's like crying in Cancer, and it's going to be okay. I think that's what I want to say on the chart for now. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the reading. And if you're watching on the replay, thanks for being here. And if you're here live, we're in chat now.